You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Well, good day to everyone, and welcome to this week's version of the Weekly Business Hour. I want to thank you for joining us today, and I also want to take a chance at the top of the show to thank our show sponsor, Pearson & Pearson CPA, located right here in downtown Conroe. Their mission is to help their clients maintain financial viability while taking a proactive approach to achieve future goals. I encourage you, if you're looking for a good CPA accounting firm, then I would check out Pearson & Pearson CPA. Well, I think we've got a wonderful show lined up for you today. Kind of go through what we're going to be talking about. I'll start off with my thought for the week, strengthening old connections. I think that's something that many of us forget to do. We look to the future, not to the past, and there's a lot of potential business and relationships with our old connections. Our special guest today is Mr. Barry Katz. He's the owner of Katz Deli. Glad to have him with us, talking about an industry that I think is probably the single most competitive industry in the business world, and that's the restaurant business. Also, Dick Schissler will be joining us, the general manager of Lone Star Community Radio. He'll update us on the business right here at Lone Star. And then in our expert segment, I'm pleased to tell you that Mark Miller, who is a fellow Silver Fox advisor, someone I call Mr. Sales, will be joining us in the expert corner to offer some quick tips on how you can increase your sales. I'll close out today's show with my Silver Fox tip of the week. Do you know who your market is? So I encourage you, sit back, grab your pad and pencil, or turn on that computer and get ready to take notes as we talk about doing business right here on the Weekly Business Hour. And a reminder, at any time during the show, if you have a thought, a comment, or you've got a business question, even a question about your own business, I encourage you, email it to me. My email address here at the station is rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com. Love to receive your questions. Look forward to answering them. Well, the thought for the week, strengthening old connections. As I mentioned when I started today, that old connections, old relationships, we often forget about them because they've been there for a long time. We get comfortable. They're there. But I think one of the places that you can find business, or one time I had a mentor that called them the golden nuggets that people have that are right in front of them and they don't see, and that's your old connections. I mean, you have to make an effort to keep those connections in the present, to keep them working for you. And my encouragement is to you, because we all have a history. We all have a history of connections, and hopefully you've built a lot of solid relationships that are directly related to your business or perhaps indirectly. I encourage you, reach out to those people. Put on a marketing program, maybe an email program. Put together something that really directs some attention at those old connections and strengthen those connections, because I've found that when someone becomes a quote-unquote old connection, they are really valuable when times get a little challenging. And you know how the business world is. It goes up and down for all of us at one time or another. So get out there, strengthen those old connections in order to give yourself a better business that is stronger, that is ready for what comes, and particularly that can grow in the future. Well, the Weekly Business Hour is where people in Conroe, businesses throughout Montgomery County, and around the world for that matter, come to talk about the latest in business news, ideas to improve their business, and to hear from some of our local business leaders on how they have found success right here in Montgomery County. And let me remind you, before we move on, that this show, the Weekly Business Hour, has a Facebook page. And if you haven't already liked us, then I want to encourage you to do that. Go to Facebook, look up the Weekly Business Hour, and also set an alert, if you will, because that way each week when we post our new show on Wednesdays, that you will get an alert that a new show's up. You can check it out. And if some of the guests or topics that we talk about are of an interest, you can listen to the podcast. So again, the Weekly Business Hour on Facebook. Well, now we're going to check in with Dick here at Lone Star Community Radio and see what's going on in the business of Lone Star this week.
Thanks, Rick. I want to let you know we had a great weekend with the Conroe's Americana Music Festival, a huge success, a lot of great bands, and you'll actually be hearing a lot of their music on the radio station because I got them to give me their CDs. So we're going to be playing them. We are excited about next year's. Just to let folks know what's going on with the Lone Star Community Radio. We're ready for the summer, and we're always looking for people who want to be their own DJ or have their own show. Just call the station at 936-647-3776. And I believe this is the first weekend where Jazzy Vibes is coming to Lone Star Community Radio. Sunday Evening Jazz is coming on Saturdays and Sundays, so the new name is called Jazzy Vibes. With we have Ramona in the studio. So it's going to start from 3 to 7 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday on Lone Star Community Radio.
Well, let me add to that, Dick, if you don't mind, an encouragement to people that here at Lone Star, we're a community radio station. You can volunteer. I'm a volunteer, and you can volunteer, and you can also develop and produce your own show. Just need to contact Dick at irlonestar.com, and you can talk about what it is you have in mind, and maybe you can be on the air like I am. Well, we're to the part of the show that really makes it special, and that's interviewing and talking with local business leaders, local businesses about what's going on with their business right here in Montgomery County. And as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Barry Katz, the owner of Katz Deli, is here today. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you've got some exciting things going on in your business, and we'll talk about them more directly. But to introduce yourself to the audience, give us a little bit of your business background, what brought you to where you are today.
Wonderful. Thanks again for having me. Hi, my name is Barry Katz, and I started in the restaurant industry at the ripe age of 12 as a dishwasher in a family business. And you either love this business or you leave it. And I absolutely love feeding people and connecting with people and just making people happy who come into Katz's Deli. And so I grew up in the restaurant business, and I had an opportunity to go to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, and went to culinary training for 2 years. And after that, I continued my education and went to Florida International University and have a degree from hotel and restaurant management. And I've been growing and running Katz's since 2000 here. I have two locations currently in the Houston area.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You started out in the dishwashing department, kind of similar to the history I had, and to so many people that are in businesses. You start in a family business. In your case, it was the restaurant business. I left the family business and went another, but gosh, what preparation. You were a dishwasher. I swept the floors. We learn a lot at that level, don't we?
Absolutely. Work ethic is key. Persistence is key to success in most businesses, and for sure in the restaurant business.
You know, it's interesting. My father, who was my mentor at that point in my life, always gave me jobs. He says, well, you may not like this job, but you need to find out what it's all about. And if you really don't like it, you'll figure out how to do something else with your life.
Wise words.
So are you going to go back to being a dishwasher one day?
You never know. They won't give me any notice if I need to be a dishwasher. Happy to do it.
Isn't that one thing that's neat about being in business for yourself is that any given day you fill in where needed.
Absolutely. And that's part of the fun. Every day's different.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You open those doors and you just wait. What's going on? Well, the restaurant business, as you alluded to, is a very challenging business. No doubt about it. I was reading an article last night about a new restaurant concept called Punch Bowl, and the guy who founded it was talking about 60% of the businesses fail. Most everyone has read about the challenge of restaurants. Talk to us a little bit about that challenge and how you deal with it.
Well, restaurants are obviously have a low success rate. But I think part of the challenge is coming up with a way to execute something different in the marketplace because there's a lot of competition and different from other retail businesses. We have the factory as well as the sales component all in the same building. It's not like we're making shoes in one country and selling it in a different. So executing is one of the challenges on a daily basis of a restaurant, as well as making a point of difference in the marketplace, having a reason for the guests to come to see Katz's or eat at Katz's rather than go to one of our competitors.
You know, that's got to be an interesting thing because, you know, you have a restaurant here, you got one across the street, down the street, whatever, and folks have lots of choices wherever they go, really, in America, pretty much. How do you compete directly? I mean, how do you make your restaurant different?
Great question. So one of the ways we make a difference, we break it down to each component, and we decide we're going to bring something completely different to the marketplace. We're not going to be ordinary. So there's a conscious decision, whether it's hours, we're 24 hours. Whether it's interior design, we've hired one of the top restaurant interior designers. Whether it's menu mix, we have a point of difference as far as our cuisine. And staffing, marketing, we're always looking for a point of difference that gives reason for the customer to come to us because there's something different than our neighbor has or someone down the street has.
You know, you mentioned labor. That's got to be one of the things because we hear, even on a national level, the unemployment rate is dropping. I recall when I was in active business that when it got around 4% or less, it got very difficult because you were basically either talking to people churning jobs or people who in those days we called unemployable. And I mean, what do you do? I mean, you've got a difficult labor market. Have you met that challenge?
Once again, I think it all comes back to a point of difference. Our customer base expects an upscale product. It's a different expectation they have, and they're willing to pay for that upscale product. So for like servers and cooks and stuff like, we're able to get the top talent due to the economic situation we've created. It all begins with that point of difference, and from that point of difference, it builds in some pricing power into the marketplace that allows us to recruit and retain some of the top talent at servers, busters, hostesses, managers, and so forth, due to the culture as well as compensation.
You know, another point of labor that's always interesting. I feel when I walk in a restaurant such as yours that I call full service, where you sit down, somebody waits on you, whatever. It's like an orchestration every day. I mean, you got folks in the back, you got folks out there, you got folks at the front door. How do I mean, you're the orchestra leader.
That's right.
How do you get up for that every day?
I'm naturally a positive person, so that really helps. You know, I wake out of bed and I'm ready to go. So I think being positive, seeing the glass half full, and knowing I've been in this business, had the opportunity to do this for over 20 years. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of situations I have not had the opportunity to deal with. So the confidence is there as well as the experience. So I think that is what leads to being able to execute and put on the show for the day.
You know, it seems like to me that a restaurant business would require someone like you that is the orchestra leader, owner, manager, whatever title you want to take. Got to be high energy. How do you maintain your energy level?
Coffee and lots of water. I hydrate all the time. You know, just stay. I think energy level, as far as different times of the day and who you are, is fortunately is something you're born with, and I've never had a shortage of energy.
So coffee and water, that's the secret to staying in tune all day.
Absolutely.
Your day starts about when?
5:30.
And when does it end typically?
Today's probably 10 o'clock tonight after service. Yeah.
5:30 to 10. That truly sounds like an entrepreneurial business.
It is. Absolutely. You got to love it or leave it.
Yeah, you made that point. A lot of hard work. There's no doubt about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're already up to our first break now. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we're going to talk to Barry Katz a little bit about his business, the actual business he's opened and rebranded here in the Conroe area, particularly in the Woodlands. So please stay with us and we'll talk to you a little bit more.
Don't forget to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play or Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM. That's Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on the computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. A Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
You're listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and host of the Weekly Business Hour. Well, we're going to continue our conversation with Barry Katz, the owner of Katz Deli. Barry, you know, it's really interesting that what you've said about the restaurant business, and I guess the main thing I've already walked away with today is the fact that you got to be high energy and that you got to really, really be passionate and love what you're doing to stay in the restaurant business. Because the hours you're keeping based on, 5:30 to 10, 11 o'clock, that's got to wear a man out.
It can, absolutely. On paper, it probably doesn't make sense. You have to just love this business.
No doubt about it. Well, let's talk a little bit more particular about, should I call it a new restaurant or rebranding? What is exactly you're doing with Katz here in the Woodlands area?
Oh, good question. So we are taking the Katz in the Woodlands and making it identical to what we have on Westheimer in Houston. And it's our 10th anniversary out here in the Woodlands. And our guests have wanted for a long time to have the same menu, the same hours, as well as the same service that we offer in the Houston store. So as the area has grown with hospitals and different businesses, we've had just more and more demand as we're closing at night to never close.
Well, that's got to be a real challenge, though, because I've read a little bit about restaurants. I'm a student of business. I love hearing about business models, how they work. And the fact is that, some people in the restaurant business I've read, they do 2 meals a day. doing 3 is hard, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now you expand that to 24 hours. What a challenge. I mean, what are some of the things you do to be able to service your public and keep that service at a high level for 24 hours a day?
Oh, great question. So we train, and have standards and have written policies of how to execute our cooking and our greeting and our staff. And then the other aspect of it is serving a lot of meals. We're breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then a whole late night component as well. And actually closing takes a lot, and opening restaurants takes a lot more energy than people realize. And being open 24 hours it's kind of like a train. It's just a constant motion to the restaurant.
How hard is, I got to ask this, how hard is it to get staff to work that late shift?
Not that hard. We've been operating for 24 hours a day in Houston since the year 2000. So we're going on our 17th year now. And we've been open 24 hours and have not had difficulty staffing with quality people on all the shifts.
I've heard that if you go around, drive around the Houston area, up here in the Conroe area, even at 1, 2, 3 in the morning when most of us are in bed asleep. But if you drive around during the week, whatever, you see people moving around. And it just can't be people out having late night fun. It's people going to and from work, jobs, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole community, if you will, of people that are busy working in the middle of the night.
That's exactly right. I mean, Katz has never closes. And, there's people, the internet world and the cyber world we live in now is the 24-hour world.
That's really interesting to me. And the fact that I would have a choice for a good quality restaurant versus some of the other typical 24 hours a day, that's got to really help your concept a lot.
Yes, absolutely. We as we spoke about earlier, we positioned ourselves different than the competition with offering a quality product. And we offer breakfast, lunch, and dinner 24 hours a day. The selection is enormous, as well as the quality is very substantial.
Let me ask you, how do you maintain that quality standard? I mean, not only through each meal or 24 hours a day, quality of food, that's got to be a real challenge to
Absolutely.
Keep it up.
Yeah,
how do you do that?
Starts with the purchasing and recipes and training, and retaining long-term people, I think, is key is part of the recipe of success. And we have some of the cooks and kitchen managers that have been with us over a decade.
Well, let me ask you, have you had everything on the menu at one time or another?
I have, and even recently, we've cooked and training our staff up here on our menu from Westheimer with bringing all the recipes to the Woodlands. So we've had the opportunity to make everything in the last 10 days and to train and to eat on it and so forth.
So you have to taste it before it goes on the menu, so to speak.
Absolutely.
That makes a lot of sense to me. It's kind of interesting. Well, one of the things we touched on in our first segment touched on very briefly is competition. I mean, there's no doubt that the Montgomery County area with Conroe, the Woodlands, and the other outlying communities, Montgomery, Willis, and so on and so forth, lots of competition in many areas of business, but particularly in restaurants, particularly in the Woodlands area where you're located. There are lots of restaurants out there, lots of choices. How do you, talk to us about that competition. It's growing. So you're opening now, but a year or two from now, you may have X number of more competitors around you.
Absolutely. There's a lot of competition and a lot of choices for our guests. So we try to position it different with our hours being 24 hours, our marketing being different, our staff quality being there, the menu selections that we offer, as well as soon as you walk in our restaurant, we see the remodel and the re-grand opening of this store after 10 years. It's completely different. People are loving it so far. We've done a soft opening, I should say, as of Saturday, and we're having our full grand opening May 12th, Friday night.
Well, it's got to be an exciting time for you. One of the things I try to teach my clients or show my clients in any business I work with is you've got to be competitive every day. You got to have that in the back of your mind. Your business, though, kind of makes it a little easier because you're open 24/7 and you recognize that people are making that choice every day. Do I turn in here or do I go down the street? That's got to help you in your mindset to be competitive, is it's every day right in front of you.
Yes, absolutely. And we kind of create our own segment with being a 24-hour New York-style quality deli operation, and our design is completely different than anything I've seen anywhere. So, we're not afraid to do something different, so we're not ordinary.
Well, let's talk about that design and the concept that you have and made a different kind of restaurant right here in Montgomery County. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, our menu, it starts with the menu selection is different. New York-style deli food, as well as some classic, the French dip and the Reuben sandwich, and classic sandwiches, as well as entrees and desserts, a list of pies and cakes that's extremely long. And We do our breakfasts from frittatas to omelets to bagels with lox and things like that 24/7. And so it starts with the menu selection, then it's building in the physical menu. As I showed you a picture earlier, our menu, the physical, is a twofold, real simple menu. It's just enormous, and it's easy to read. It's large print day or night and white light colors for people to see. And it starts with the staff uniforms. We provide dry clean uniforms for the staff for all the shifts, so everyone's pressed, long sleeve shirt, long aprons. It starts with interior design. No one has done something like what we have done. We've created something unique, but we've gone around the country to Southern California for certain type of tile work, as well as mosaic tiles and lighting systems that took months to build, and Pittsburgh for a metal ceiling, and other parts of the country to bring in all different materials to fit the design we've been looking for.
Well, you know, the pictures you shared with me prior to going on the air, I mean, it's, if even if I'm not really that hungry, it's a great place to go look, and it's an exciting place to be in based on what I saw in those pictures.
Yeah, and that brings a great point, which is the food industry has changed over the last decade, where it used to just be people were really about the food. And now it seems to me, I was thinking about it on the right up here, architecture and design and menu design, color selection, lighting, all these components, I almost think are even with the quality of food. Where people, it's in their mind as far as where they're choosing to go eat, the aesthetics of it are, I think, equal to important as the quality of the food, where it used to really be just quality of food.
What I read, not just in your industry, but other industries, people are looking for an experience.
Exactly.
I mean, just when I go eat lunch, I need an experience.
Right. Yes.
That's kind of interesting, and that's difficult.
Yes.
For you, I mean, to execute on day in, day out.
Absolutely. People eat with their eyes, so to speak, nowadays in the industry.
Instead of their tummies like we did when I was growing up. That's interesting.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, in your business, obviously hard work is already, today we've talked about that. What are some of the other secrets to success in your industry? You've talked about hard work. We've also talked about concept and so on and so forth. Share with us what you can that would be a secret to success in general in the restaurant industry today.
Good question. Well, obviously, it's what we've been talking about. It's design is really important. People want to feel like they're at a neat place. They want to feel it's something unique. They want to feel the passion that I have for the restaurant industry. They want to be able to look around the dining room. They want to see it. They want to see it in the marketing. They want to see it in the signage. They want to see it in the staff selection that we have. And I think it also takes the healthy food is really important these days. People want to have options on the menu for that as well. And I think the passion that I have has to come through my staff and all the way down to all the guests, so they know that we're glad they're here.
Let me ask you, you bring up a thought in my mind. We've got a food network on TV now. We've got all the chef programs, the Iron Chef competition. How do you think that's impacted your business? People watch that, then they go out to eat. How does that impact your business?
Oh, I think a big impact on the industry, where they're very open-minded, and it's fantastic to new ingredients, to new olives, to new herbs, to new spices, to new style of jalapeno pancakes we've put on the menu before, and people are interested in it. So I think it's really helped us to be able to bring stuff to our guests that they're open-minded to, where before the Food Network was around and shows similar to that, people were not nearly as open-minded.
Well, I got to ask you this.
Yes.
Jalapeno pancakes.
Yes.
Is that a big item for you?
We put it on about a year ago, and believe it or not, we'll make them if people want them, but it was not a big item. But it is really delicious.
Right. It's an interesting combination. Well, what does the future hold? I mean, you've got a new opening here on the 12th, new idea up here, at least in Montgomery County, that you've perfected in Houston. What does the future hold for you and Katz?
Oh, we're focused on making this one a success right now. I mean, the 24 hours is a huge opportunity for us as a company to brand ourselves unique compared to anyone else out here in the marketplace, to be the quality 24-hour restaurant. And beyond that, I mean, once the customers give us feedback over the months ahead, we think it will go very well, we'll look to open other locations in other areas in the Houston area.
Well, let me ask you, you talk about feedback. How do you go about getting feedback in your business?
Oh, great. Through sites that people post on, we put a comment card on every single table, as well as I spend hours a day just in the dining room talking to people, which has been a lot of fun lately, because the last 2 days since we've been open, people are just love the changes. We've had one guest who didn't like it and misses the counter service we used to be, but now we're full service with draft beer and new menu, new selections, completely new look, and it's been a lot of fun to put months and months of planning and month and a half of construction, and to be able to stand out there and feel proud of what I'm doing.
One of the things we talked about, you have a website, which I mentioned to you, for me as a potential diner or customer is important, because a lot of times we'll go look at the menu just to see if, in your case, I know you'll have something I like, but a lot of restaurants I don't. If I want to go look at your web address or your website, how do I do that?
www.ilovekatzes.com.
Give us that once again. I think that's unique.
ilovekatzes.com.
Wow, that's a great name. If people want to come to your restaurant, if they don't know where it is, give us an idea where you're located.
We are on exit 77 on I-45, next to the Home Depot.
Okay. As we close out the show today, Barry, I want to thank you first for being a guest. You've got a wonderful attitude. I just, when you're sitting here, I can see the excitement about you want to get in that restaurant. Again, 24 hours a day, you got to be excited and stay excited. If people want to reach out to you and talk to you about what you're doing there, or to come to the restaurant or just need information, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can contact me through the website at ilovekatzes.com.
Okay. Well, I encourage people to check out this new restaurant concept in the Montgomery County area. And again, Barry, thank you for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our bottom of the hour break now. And when we come back in the expert corner, we're going to have Mr. Mark Miller join us, or as I call him, Mr. Sales. So please stay with us, and we'll be right back with you.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? The Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your question. Get seen on TV or YouTube and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Sponsor your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
This is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and the host of the Weekly Business Hour, and thank you for staying with us. We're in our third segment, what I like to call typically is the Expert Corner, and today we have a real expert joining us. That's Mr. Mark Miller. He's a fellow Silver Fox advisor, also known as Mr. Sales. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Rick. Glad to be here.
Well, again, thank you for taking time to join us today, because I truly believe that sales and knowing how to sell for the business owner, not necessarily the professional salesperson, but for the business owner, is one of the most challenging things that many business owners have in making their business success. So let's talk about selling. Where would you like to start?
I don't know, Rick. You want to start with prospecting?
Well, that's the very beginning, isn't it? Let's start talk about prospecting. Talk to us about some of the truths and some of the fictions, if you will, about prospecting for new customers.
Well, there's sort of a misconception. Business owners sort of come in two flavors. They're really sort of smart person that has a great idea for a business, and they think that everybody should buy their stuff just because it's the best available. And then the other side is typically a really good salesperson who is pretty good at generating business. The issue is that when it comes to prospecting, everybody must be prospecting all the time. You just can't miss an opportunity.
Well, that's something, again, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's a big challenge if you're not the sales type and you're starting a business, to recognize, because you got 100 different things going on, that you really need to be in that prospecting mode all the time. Let me ask you this. Give us some ideas of how one prospects.
Well, it can be as simple as, when someone asks you, hey, what do? You ought to have a prepared answer no matter where you are, at a kid's ball game, at church, at some sort of function, in the grocery store, wherever somebody comes up and asks you, what do you do? And that's probably the biggest chance you have to at least start. And when you're doing that, the thing to keep in the back of your mind is to remember that people buy emotionally and they justify intellectually. So you have to have some emotion in your little elevator pitch, if you will.
Well, let me ask you this. I've been around a number of opportunities over the years where people, either through a Chamber of Commerce, most recently the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here in the Woodlands, offers the opportunity for people to get some training about building that pitch, if you will. When I walk up to someone and they say, "What do you do?" or the opportunity comes up and they say, "Well, I own the hardware store over on Main Street." That's not really what you're looking for, is it?
No, it's really not, and because that doesn't click, right? But if you can say, I serve people who are frustrated with their Saturday morning chores, it lights up because let's face it, when we have a honeydew or a chore to do on Saturday, how many trips do we make to the hardware store, right?
Well, and you're appealing to that emotion, right?
That's exactly right. You're frustrated. Maybe they're upset, because they don't know where to find things easily. They go to the big box store, and nobody will help them. So they're upset because they can never find what they want in a timely fashion. So the local hardware store might be the place.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. They could be disappointed for that reason too. So these are all emotion-evoking words, and we have some more we can share if you want. So.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about that because again, I think a lot of folks that start businesses have not taken advantage of training that's offered, and that's why I mentioned it through chambers of commerce. Lots of opportunities out there to help someone help you put your pitch together, and I encourage everybody to do that. But some people will listen today and hopefully be able to craft one themselves. Talk a little bit more about the emotional appeal or that you need in your pitch.
Well, we developed an acronym. It's called FUDWACA, which doesn't mean anything to anyone, but it has the words that we've been talking about. It's frustrated, upset, disappointed, worried, anxious, concerned, and even angry. I'm sure there's a small business owner out there somewhere that's angry today because he's not or she's not meeting the numbers for whatever reason. And if you can do something to help that angry small business owner, that frustrated or disappointed or worried or frustrated or upset or anxious, pick a word, have a leg up. And that strikes an immediate chord. Yeah, that's me. I am the guy that's frustrated on Saturday morning because I can't find what I need to complete my task.
Well, the idea that I see coming through is that we really need to build some kind of simple plan. I mean, we got to think through whether we use the FUDWACA, did I say that right? Or whatever.
Yeah,
we got to build a plan for prospecting. How do you go about doing that?
Well, everybody has a different budget, right? What we've talked about so far really doesn't cost anything. An elevator pitch, I'm sure the chamber probably does that as a service to the community. And you can do whatever your budget is, but that you have to decide what prospecting activities you have. And I can share some statistics if you'd like about what works and what doesn't work. And it really depends on the type of business. Are you focusing on business to consumer or business to business sort of sales? And I'll be frank. The business to consumer piece is not my strength. But the one thing I will tell you that if you don't have a viable website, a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page, you're missing it. So if you get anything out of this and it's not viable, update. And if you can blog, for goodness sakes, blog. Because that gets you a little bit higher up. And even if you're the hardware store owner, you can blog on, how to store paint, what brush goes with which stain, whatever. There's like a billion things that you could be blogging about. Every time you do that in the social media world, it grabs someone's attention somewhere. And that helps you get more visibility and more visibility and more visibility, and it's absolutely free.
Well, and the thing about blogging, and people miss it, first of all, because I do blog myself, and I'm always reaching out to people who blog a lot and seeking some pointers about the general concept. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It can be 250 pages. In fact, I had someone the other day who's really a professional blogger tell me, used to be we'd write 600-800 words. Now people are wanting quick and easy, 150, 250 words. And like you made a great example, I run a hardware store. I have a lot of information. I have the content in my head most of the time. It's just writing it down and establishing myself out there in the social media world as quote unquote an expert on solving or meeting the frustration that people are feeling. It's a pretty simple concept.
And it really is. And if you may be, let's face it, Rick, we're not on the cutting edge of social media at our age, but I bet that hardware store owner has a young person that they're hiring part-time, and part of their duties ought to be to take whatever is in his mind and stick it in the blog for him, or her. Get it done, however you have to do it. I think that's the most important thing about prospecting is you got to start and you got to do it. So the thing I would say is when you're building a plan, let's just say blog is number one on your list, and that works equally well between business to consumer and business to business. All right, you're building a reputation. So on a calendar, on a piece of paper, in your smartphone, however you keep your to-do list these days, the first thing on there ought to be update my blog. All right. The next thing on there ought to be have a specific pitch for each environment. Am I at the chamber and I get to stand up and give my 30-second commercial or whatever? Have it done. Am I at a social event? What do I say there? Am I at my child's ball game? What do I say there? And they don't all have to be the same and probably shouldn't be the same because they're situational, but they should have the same emotion-evoking message. All right? And then keep track. How many times have I given my elevator speech today, this week, this month? You'll surprise yourself at how infrequently you actually do it. The next thing is if you have a budget and you need to spend some money on something, you got to keep track of where you're spending your money. Do you spend it on direct mail? I don't know. Do you spend it in the newspaper? I don't know. Do you buy some Google ads? Probably. Can you invest in an AdWord or two to get your presence higher? And then see what happens. How many leads do I get there? And when a new prospect calls or anyone calls, hey, how'd you hear about me? An easy question, and and you can find out where you're supposed to spend your money, and the ones that give you the most results is where the money ought to be spent.
You mentioned something about the of web and presence, Google AdWords. Some of those things are they're I don't know if they're art or science or a combination or both. I've had some experiences, good and bad. But the key thing is to keep your website up to date, which folks put websites up, and we see them all the time. They've been up there for 5 years, and nothing's changed, except the fact that there are a number of businesses on the web that have updated. In other words, the creative touch has changed. Just like my guest earlier, Barry Katz, he's updated the restaurant. He's changed his concept, but also visually and how it works has changed dramatically. And it makes me want to go in. And as we talked on the show, secondarily, have a meal. It's just that experience. What is your advice to people, particularly today, about keeping that web page up to date?
Well, the number one thing, and I'll be honest, I've just hired a guy to help me. So I practice what I preach. Is that web page has to be viewable on a smartphone, iPad, whatever. And if it's not compatible to that device, it's not doing you any good. As a matter of fact, if you think about the demographics of folks these days, there's a lot of 40 and under folks that don't do anything unless it's on some sort of smart device. So that little piece is missed. I mean, think of how many websites you search for on your smartphone and you can't read them because they don't fit, or the images and the graphics aren't right. So my biggest piece of advice is make sure not only is it up to date, but it is viewable on a smart device of some sort.
Well, I think it's very important because, again, small business people, we don't understand that. If you go check out the large businesses, the corporations, all those people, they're all on the phone. And the fact is, statistics are showing that it's 60+% and growing the number of people that find businesses are finding them on the mobile device. Well, Mark, we've got about 15 seconds left. If people wanted to reach you and talk a little bit about sales or get some information from you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Well, it's probably, they can reach out via email. It's Mark, M-A-R-K, at strategiesforsuccessinc.com. They can just email me. They can text me or ring my cell phone, 713-256-9099.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Miller, Mr. Sales as I call him, I encourage you, if you've got an idea or question or something's bothering you about sales, reach out to Mark Miller. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our third segment today, and I hope you will stay with us. When we come back after the commercial break, I'm going to talk a little bit about my Silver Fox tip of the week. Do you know who your market is? So please stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
A Lone Star Community Radio is ready for the summer. If you or anyone you know is looking for summer internship opportunities, a Lone Star Community Radio is a great place to grab the mic and be on the air. A Lone Star Community Radio offers a great opportunity to those interested in learning about the radio world all year round. Be an on-air personality, talk show producer, or YouTube, TV, podcast editor. Contact the station at info@irlonestar.com or call the station's message line at 936-647-3776.
You are listening to the Weekly Business Hour, and this is Rick Schissler, your Silver Fox advisor and the host of the Weekly Business Hour. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. And if you missed part of the show today, let me remind you that this show is podcast. All our shows are available on podcast. They typically are released each Wednesday following the Monday show, and you can find those in a variety of places. You can come right here to irlonestar.com, or you can go to YouTube. We have our own channel, the Weekly Business Hour. And the place I like to tell people about most is our Facebook page, the Weekly Business Hour. I encourage you to like us on the Weekly Business Hour page and then set up an alert so you'll get information about the show each week when it's published. Well, this is the final segment of the show, as I mentioned, and each week I like to try to come up with an idea or concept that I believe that people can hopefully use right now in their business, something you could do today if you choose to. And this week I want to talk to you in my Silver Fox tip of the week about the idea, do you know who your market is? Now, to many of you, that's going to sound kind of strange, and you're going to say, okay, what is this guy thinking? I mean, I know who my market is. I sell into my market every day. Well, I'm going to challenge you on that because I believe that a vast majority of the small businesses in the United States don't really know who their market is. And I'll contend with you that the reason for that is like many things, we simply don't take the time as small business owners to find out who our market really is. And then secondly, and very important, that market changes. Maybe not every hour, every day, every month, but at least once or twice during the year. And if you haven't caught on yet, things are changing more rapidly today than they did in the past. A lot of that has to do with the internet. We heard a discussion with Mr. Miller, Mark Miller, in our last segment about your web page and keeping it fresh, keeping information. I don't think that's a daily task. I don't even think that's a monthly task unless you sell on the site online. But I think it's critical that your website makes people feel like they're wanted, they feel comfortable, they want to do business, even if they don't do business on the web. Because reality is 95% of the people that are buying business to business today, for example, go to the website before they actually do business with a new company. So keep that in mind. You know, this past week I was doing some reading. I came across an article by one of my favorite people in the small business world, John Janisch, the duct tape marketing guy. This guy has got a lot of wonderful ideas, things that really work in the marketing area particularly. And he wrote an article recently called The Biggest Marketing Challenge for Small Business. It's an article really dedicated to the ABCs of putting together a really viable marketing plan for small businesses. And I wrote about it in my blog this past week. And, you know, he provides you with a checklist. And I would encourage you to go out there and Google the biggest marketing challenge for small business or John Janisch or duct tape marketing and take a look at that article because it provides you with a checklist. And again, I respect the fact that everybody's worked on their marketing plan, whether it was for 5 minutes 20 years ago or it was for a full day just last year in preparation for this year. But John provides a nice little checklist and explains different areas that you really need to figure out before you go to marketing. And one of the items on that list is your ideal customer. It is the idea that you figure out who your market is. And this is the one I found really interesting because if you don't identify your ideal customer or don't identify your market, then think about it. You do the rest of the planning, for example, on John's checklist, and then all of a sudden you're doing this planning to focus your marketing sales effort on a market or a customer that really is not your customer. Now, that may sound a little bit naive on my part, but the point is that, yes, I may know in a general sense who my customer is. If I'm a Main Street business, people coming in and out of my door every day, and I can observe what they're buying. But as Mark Miller said in his presentation, emotion is always part of our decision making, particularly when we're buying. Well, the reality is if people come into my store, they create a conversation, I really like them, then I'm more likely to remember what they bought versus the other 10 or 15 or 20 customers that came in that day that just said hello, this and that. So if you're shooting from the hip, if you will, if you're going by memory to try to identify your ideal customer, I believe you're in trouble from the beginning of your effort to identify who your market is and who your ideal customer is. What I suggest is sit down and take a look at what your customer base is currently. Everyone should have some kind of statistics on who bought what. This is in the accounting function. You have invoices. You got to tie it back that they bought this, this, and this, and what kind of customer were they, whether it be a consumer or a business. Again, businesses need to have that kind of simple data collection, and there's a lot of software out there, and a lot of people can help you do it. And one of the things, don't stop right now and say, well, I just don't have time for that. Figure out how to delegate that. Either hire a third party or get someone within your business or your partner or whatever. You can make this happen. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it is so important because if you look down the road, a period of days, years, and you're marketing to a customer who does business with you, but they're not your ideal customer, they're not your ideal market, the point is that you could be doing a lot more business and potentially making a lot more money if you identify who that ideal customer is. Some of the other things I think you should do is talk to your employees. That's something I don't see or hear people doing on a regular basis when they're trying to determine who their market is. If you have employees throughout your company, these employees will have some sense of who's buying what. And it's very interesting if you can strike up a conversation with them and take down some notes, take down some information, then take that information back and compare it to the data and see if it agrees or see if the data maybe is a little bit different. That's okay, because what you're doing is trying to confirm. The point is you're trying to build. So you need to have a number of tools and you need to have resources that help you build the best model for determining what is your market. The other thing I encourage, and this gets fairly difficult for small business, try to find some industry data. It's out there for most businesses. There's data about your industry, who makes up the customers. Somebody just has to go on the internet and search for it. Another place you might find it, if you have an accountant or a CPA, that industry typically has access to a lot of industry information. And if you're a client and your industry's out there, they can get that information for you. I've personally used that resources on several occasions to help build my model of who my ideal customer and market was. The idea is to build this market, to build that profile, not just from your gut. Nothing wrong with your instincts. Instincts are so important. There's no doubt about it. But what, at the very least, you're going to do is confirm that your instincts are correct, that the idea, you're going to get some evidence, if you will, and confirm that where you're taking your business through your marketing and sales effort, which occurs every day, don't you want to be on target? Don't you want to be doing the best you can, being the most efficient, cost-effective you can in your business? Sure you do. You want to market to the right people and to the best people who can do business with you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you joining us today. I hope this program has been useful and educational to you. And I encourage you, please put a note on your calendar to join us again next Monday, right here on irlonestar.com at 11 a.m., when we'll have a very special business leader joining us, Lisa McElroy with Allegra HR, will talk to us about everything HR. Human resources are a very important topic and issue in business. Tune in and listen to Lisa, who has 20 plus years in dealing with HR issues around the globe. She'll be talking to us and hopefully will help you improve your HR. And remember, you too can sponsor the Weekly Business Hour. All you need to do is reach out and contact me directly at Rick, R-I-C-K, at irlonestar.com for details. Look for the podcast of today's show, as I mentioned earlier, on the Weekly Business Hour page of irlonestar.com and on our Facebook page later in the week. I appreciate you listening to those podcasts, and I want to especially thank you for sending your comments to us. And again, thank you to Pearson CPA for being our show sponsor. And again, thank you for joining us today. Remember to stay in touch with what's happening in Montgomery County right here on Lone Star Community Radio. And until next week, I encourage you, stay engaged and keep your focus on what counts in your business. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this recording from Lone Star Community Radio. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station and broadcasted live from Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com and Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1. Interested in sponsoring this show, being a guest, hosting your own show? And please visit us online at irlonestar.com and check out the Contact Us page. We want to say thank you to our studio supporters. Our traffic sponsor, Conroe Americana Music Festival at conroeamericanamusicfestival.com. For more information about the show, please check out the information below in the description.